Good day, everyone. Today we're starting a new course in social psychology. We'll be introducing some concepts and talking about what social psychology is and some of the factors that are used to measure social psychology. So we'll mostly be referring to chapter 1 in your book, which is Introducing Social Psychology. So the question is posed, what is social psychology? Social psychology is the scientific study of how individuals think, feel, and behave in a social context. Don't worry, there's a lot of terminology in here that we're going to become more familiar with in this unit, what we mean by social context. Things like that. Don't worry too much about this. Introductory units are always like this. Social psychology has been defined as the scientific investigation of how the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors of individuals are influenced by the actual, imagined, or implied presence of others. And that's from Allport's 1954 study. And if we take a moment to consider that quotation, scientific investigation of how thoughts, feelings of an individual or a group of individuals are influenced by the imagined, real, or implied presence of other individuals. So how society acts upon the behavior of one or more people is social psychology. And for those of you who've taken a broad section of liberal arts courses, this is kind of the difference between sociology and anthropology. We're interested in talking about social groups and their effect on the individual or individuals. In this case, we might be talking about a family or a group of friends, a group of classmates, for example, and how the particular society around them affects their responses to certain stimuli. And the third point here, social psychology is a science because it uses the scientific method to construct and test theories. Okay, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You don't have to write all of these down, but you should become very familiar with what we mean when we say Abraham Maslow or Maslow's hierarchy or the hierarchy of needs. We're all referring to the same thing. This is a very important psychological concept. For those of you who have been to the United States before, this looks a lot like a food pyramid, which is the way we do nutrition in the United States. All the packages have these things on them, and it's carbohydrates and protein and all of these things. And up at the top is, I believe, sugar and fat that you're not supposed to get very much of. This is not how Maslow's hierarchy works, and Maslow's hierarchy predates the nutritional pyramid in the United States. But according to Maslow, as higher order beings, we start out with the very basic biological things, our physiological needs, hunger and thirst, and our safety needs, security and protection. These are things that all animals have in common. Whether you're talking about a bird, whether you're talking about a bat, whether you're talking about a dog, whether you're talking about a person, all of these things have to be met for a successful life or a comfortable life to be lived. Getting into social needs, this exists in some animals, also exists very widely in human beings, the sense of belonging and the sense of love, belonging to a family, being in a committed, reciprocal, romantic relationship, marriage being the most common example. According to Maslow, I'm not an expert on Maslow, but I do know a fair amount about him. You can't really get to self-actualization until you've been in a committed relationship to really develop the highest order of consciousness and the most internal personal development, because this is where your self-esteem comes from. Everyone knows that your public face, the face that you present at work, the face that I'm presenting to you right now, the face that you are presenting to me as diligent students, is not your real face. It's only the person that you're married to, it's only your children, your parents, who really know you. So therefore, until you've had a significant social relationship belonging to, and probably with Maslow, I'm not sure about this, but I believe so, until you start your own family, to the degree that you're capable of. My sister, for example, has been married for coming up on 30 years. I believe it's 30 years this summer my sister's been married, but they were unable to have children. But she has reached this stage, and so now she can start developing her self-esteem, her confidence in herself. According to Maslow, you don't really reach adult levels of self-esteem until you've done the whole social needs part of the hierarchy. And this leads to self-actualization, who you really are as an adult, your full development and your full capacity as a human being. This is where, from this point on, we are different from animals. This is what makes human beings different, is the complexity of our needs in terms of interpersonal relationships and how our consciousness develops, which is why it's difficult to have philosophical conversations with someone who's 18 who hasn't experienced very much of life yet. That's very abstract. They can't apply those things to life. So, in introducing Maslow, we're not going to spend much time with Maslow. He's sort of the founder of social psychology, or an important underpinning of social psychology. But we'll move into introducing social psychology now. So, we have a diagram here that's from your textbook, which is broken into 3 parts. So social psychology is a scientific study of social thinking, and we can all read what's written there: how we perceive ourselves and others, what we believe, judgments we make, and our attitude. So this is us in regards to ourselves and to others. This is our social thinking. Social influence. Social psychology is a scientific study of social influence, which is culture, pressures to conform, peer pressure, persuasion, and groups of people acting upon us. So this part of the picture is social psychology is others acting upon us, whether it's culture, whether it's peer pressure, whether it's, in this case, persuasion. Sales technique would be a form of persuasion. Someone trying to convince you to go to the employee whatever party this weekend, so-and-so's party this weekend. I don't want to go, but you're trying to convince me to go because it's better for my career. This is a form of persuasion. And how we act when we are in groups. And then social psychology is the scientific study of social relations, all the way over here, which is our interaction with others as how would we say, the product of the first two, the way we act out towards others after we've been influenced by others. You're not born prejudiced, you're not born aggressive, all of those things. And all of these will be developed in the coming slides. I think we have 6 slides on social thinking and 4 or 5 on social influence, and again, 4 or 5 on social relations. So we'll develop these ideas now. So social thinking, important thing to consider is attribution theory. This is the tendency to give a causal explanation to someone's behavior, often crediting either the situation or the person's disposition. And I'll explain that more in a moment. But the second point here, this is attribution theory. You attribute something. To attribute something is to say that that is the result of, and whatever you say it's the result of. So I attribute everyone being sad to the fact that it's raining today, or it was raining earlier, but it's not nice weather today. So that's attribution theory, saying when the weather's bad, people don't seem as happy. Fundamental attribution error is the tendency for observers, when analyzing another's behavior, to underestimate the impact of the situation and to overestimate the impact of personal disposition. So what is being said here is when I think about why people do things, I underestimate the impact of the situation at the moment, and I overestimate their personality, their own personal beliefs, as explaining their behavior. And we'll see an example of that in a moment. And attitude in regards to attribution theory, belief and feeling that predisposes one to respond in a particular way to objects, people, and events. The example I would give to you is I have a very good friend who I used to work with and I still see socially quite often. And he interprets every social situation as if it were him. He is fundamentally incapable of imagining himself as the other person. So anyone's behavior, if someone gets upset, if someone reacts happily to a situation, he completely interprets that person's actions based on, I would be happy in this situation if X, Y, and Z. And that's the only way that he can see the world. So I will tell him, oh, well, so-and-so, for example, I told him that a friend of mine's wife is very attractive, and he responded, well, that means you must want to sleep with her. And that's because that would be his approach. If he found a woman attractive, he would want to engage in an intimate relationship with her. I just found the woman to be aesthetically pleasing, nice to look at. She's married. I don't consider her a candidate for anything more than that. And I was complimenting my friend, someone I work with, that he has a very nice looking wife. Nothing more, nothing less. But my friend was unable to interpret that, my statement, as meaning anything more than I had an agenda of trying to get this woman to cheat on her husband, which was certainly not the case. But as I said, this is a good example of an attribution error, and definitely attribution theory, where he's unable to imagine how and why someone else would do something other than the way he would do it. Here's another example. Again, continuing with social thinking, how we explain someone's behavior affects how we react to it. So negative behavior of the other driver here, as we can see, there's a red car, he's driving in the middle of the road, and this is you, or this is our subject, situational attribution.